Yo, what is going on? I'm excited to share with you this video because this is one of the most requested or most asked questions that we have every single time someone asks about a webinar. It's how do you get more people to show up to the webinar, right? There's nothing worse than you spending thousands of dollars on ads or promoting for 2 weeks straight just for nobody to show up, or you get a low percentage, right? You get 1,000 people and only 100 of them show up, right? Let's fix that for you, right? These are the 4 unconventional ways that we use with our clients to help them get 30% or more on every webinar. Now, what we actually aim for is 25% to 30% plus. Now, if you right now are running webinars and you're stuck around like a 12%, a 15%, if you stack these 4 things, they will help you get yourself up to 25 to 30%. Now, if you can double your show rates, you can double the amount of money, right? So we are all focused on helping you make more money through online virtual events. If you are new to the channel, that is exactly what we are going to teach you. So in this video, these 4 ways are maybe things you haven't heard before or just not done the right way, and I will show you exactly how we do it. We run anywhere between 20 to 30 webinars per month with our clients, more than 200 webinars a year. So we have a lot of experience in this. We run all of the back end, we run all of the marketing, and so I wanna give this to you. So let's kind of dive in here and let's help you make more money. All right, so 4 ways to increase your webinar show rates by 30% plus. These are the 4 things that we're gonna be talking about today. First off, your pre-SMS structure, right? And so you may be doing SMS. It's surprising how many people actually don't do SMS, which is crazy to me, and they're just using email because email gets like a 25, maybe 30% open rate. SMS gets like a 98%, right? And so using SMS is so important, but there's a certain structure to using it. So number 1, you don't spam the shit out of people, because if you spam people, they will unsubscribe and you will hurt your reputation and you could get sued. Let's not do that. Number 2 are the DM automations. Now, DM automations are very, very powerful, but there's a way you wanna set them up in a way that you wanna structure the offering in order to get people, as many people as you can, to your DM, right? Number 3 are using teasers, and we'll dive into exactly what those teasers are. And number 4 is what I call the screenshot, right? The screenshot. This is the most badass way to get more people to show up to your webinar that I have ever seen, and it works like a charm. Every single client we've used it for across all sorts of different industries, this always works, right? And so, as usual, I'm gonna show you some proof, right? So I'm not just some bullshitter saying we get 30% plus. If you check this out right here, this is one of the webinars that we did, got 37%, 9,000 registrants, 3,500 attendees. So this is not some small sample size of like, 100 people registered and 40 people showed up. We're talking about 3,500 people showing up, right? Here, you've got 12,000 registrants, a 44%. Now, just to be clear, this is a 2-day workshop. So between the 2 days, 44% of people showed up, right? Typically, you'll get about 30% the first day, about 25 to 30% the next day. Second day sometimes are a little bit lower, but in total, we had 44% of the people that signed up. Dude, 12,000 registrants, 5,000 of them in total showed up, right? Now, this is one that we actually did yesterday, right? You can see this one's at a 28%, 27.92, right? So not always are gonna hit 30%, but again, we wanna stay above that 25. You can see 2,400 registrants, 675. A little bit smaller, but wanted to give you something that's like literally like yesterday that we did, so you can see the proof, and it's not always the huge, massive ones, right? Like not everybody can run a webinar with 12,000 registrants, 10,000 registrants. This is one that's a little bit more normalized, 2,400 registrants, right? And so like we talked about, the pre-SMS is the first thing that we wanna go through, right? So let me zoom in here. Now, there's a bunch of different softwares that you can technically use for your like sequence. I've seen like simple texting and these kind. I don't necessarily like those because there's so many different softwares that we're using. We're sending data all back and forth, and then we can't really remove them easily if somebody ends up booking a call or purchasing after the webinar. And so the one that I love to use is Go High Level. So if you've ever used Go High Level, essentially it's just a massive CRM. It does email, it does text messaging, it does calendars, sales calls, like automations, like it's great, right? I love to use it for SMS specifically. Now, side note, if you are using Go High Level, do not use Go High Level's like integrated SMS that they have inside of Go High Level. It's fucking dog shit. It basically puts a bunch of parameters where, they'll stop your texting, right? Like it sucks, dude. So if you're gonna use Go High Level, use Twilio integrated into Go High Level. This is how old school it used to be. Go High Level, when it does anything in itself, it's so dog shit at first. So like, don't use it. they will limit you to how much you can send. Just a side note, right? So what we like to do here when we do these is we send quite a bit of messages. We try to send one about every single day for the 5 to 6 days leading up to the webinar, right? Now you don't want to send too many of these because if you piss people off, they're not gonna show up to the webinar. They're gonna unsubscribe and hit stop, right? And so what we do initially is you want to have an initial text, literally immediately, right when somebody books. Like they need to know that right when they opted in, a message came in, says your name, and they don't recognize the number, but that'll be the number that they will consistently see everything from, so they recognize it later. Do not put a delay of 10, 20 minutes because people are stupid and they will opt in and literally forget that they opted in, right? And so immediately, right? And then what we do here is a little bit different. People like to put like a little my story. This is not an SMS, this is an email, but this my story email is essentially like having them get to know you, right? And so they're gonna get an SMS immediately. They're gonna get your standard regular reminders via email as well, but we also send this 10-minute story where it's like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about my story and why you should listen to me, right? Make sure you add that in, it does help. And so you can see right here, we have 4 days before, and so we send one that's 4 days before, we send one 3 days before, so once a day we actually send these, right? 2 days before, 24 hours before, and what we like to do with these is we wanna either kind of give them a quick like glance at what's in the training or what they're gonna learn, or do you wanna give them like, I don't wanna call it homework, but video assets and things that they can use to get more familiar with you or get hyped up on the training, things like that, right? And so let's open this and let's see. So here we go. We've got a YouTube video here, right? And we're like, hey, check out this YouTube video by this known biohacker because this training that we're doing is like the anti-biohacking, right? And so it's like, hey, I've worked with biohackers and so this is why you should listen to me. Check out this YouTube video, right? And so you wanna make sure that you're pushing things that, number one, are very relevant to the training itself, but number two, are gonna get them more acclimated with you and spend more time with you. Like if you can get them to watch 20 minutes of this video right here, they're sold and they're showing up to this training. So super important to make sure that you have the right stuff in your sequences, whether that's email or SMS. We're just gonna be talking about SMS, right? And so we have one, again, every single day, and then the last day, this is what's very important, is that you need to have 3 on the last day. One we do in the morning, right? And the one in the morning you can put testimonials and things like that. Hey, you know, the training is today. Check out John who did X, Y, and Z. And you can put screenshots of these testimonials. Now, side note for this as well, if you do massive webinars where you're doing like 5, 10,000 people, you're not gonna wanna put any images or anything in here because it's just gonna be too big, unfortunately, and it's not gonna be able to send them all. So just take note of that, but most people aren't gonna be doing big webinars like that. Then you send one 2 hours before that says, hey, webinar's coming up in 2 hours. Like here's a little teaser, right? You can say, here's a screenshot of what the presentation looks like. Like put a little teaser or something in there. Of course, if you can add screenshots and stuff like that if you're not doing a massive one. And then the most important one, and this by far has screwed us over if this does not send, is the 10-minute one. We have literally had webinars where we have done all of the SMS. Every single person has just been getting slammed with SMS and email for, like 4 or 5 days. And they even got slammed with the morning and the 2 hour. And this one didn't send out, or somebody's card went down and it couldn't process it to send the text messages, and our show rates tanked, right? So this one is the most important. Now what we like to do is send it about 10 minutes before. 2 reasons. Number one, so that people can kind of like get prepared, right? And number 2, if there's a delay, if you have a massive amount of people, right? If you're doing webinars like this, where you've got, 3,500 attendees, 9,000 registrants, there's going to typically be a delay, right? It's gonna like take some time to send all of them out, right? And if you have like an account that has a bigger delay, like a 20-minute delay sometimes, move this out just a little bit, right? And just make sure that your language is like what we say is, hey, we're going live, click here to join us, right? If it's 20 minutes out, hey, we're about to go live at 7 p.m. EST sharp, click here to join, right? Make sure you have enough ample time to send these things to people so that they all send to them, right? And then it basically goes into the actual webinar. So this one right here, super, 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 super important. Literally, if this one doesn't send, it will fuck up your entire webinar, right? So number 2, we're gonna talk about DM automations. Now this one is really cool. This isn't something that I've seen too many people do that we discovered, I'd say about like a year ago, and it works phenomenal. There's a few things that this does that are different than most of the things that people are implementing. This one allows you to have conversations with them before the webinar itself, right? Which is really cool, right? So before the webinar, plus another avenue to send reminders, right? Like we're literally gonna have like 3 or 4 places that we're sending people reminders. It's not just email. If you're only using email, you're shooting yourself in the foot. That's why your show rate sucks. Make sure you add multiple things. So this is kind of what a DM automation will look like, right? So once somebody is registered for the webinar and they go to the thank you page here, they are going to get some type of like download or some type of freebie, right, before the webinar. And the way that we do this is we say, send me a DM with the word blank. Go to Instagram at this. Send a DM with the word blank, right? And so again, what this does is it not only gets them to take another step, right, do something else to kind of solidify solidify like the registration, but what it also does is they're DMing you. You can go in there and chop it up with them. Have conversation. Have your fucking setters talk to them. If they can have good conversation before the webinar, guess what? That person's showing up, right? Super important. So what they'll do is they'll go DM your Instagram. Now you'll get about, I'd say 25 to 30% of these people actually DM. You know, on the high end, we've seen like 35%. But don't expect everybody to DM. A lot of times, if you're not just promoting on Instagram, you're gonna have people that end up coming from like Facebook or different sources too, and they sometimes don't have Instagram. Surprisingly, there's still a lot of people who don't have Instagram, right? And so just, you know, be aware of that, but you can get at least another 30% of these people to jump into your DMs, right? And the beautiful thing about this is they're gonna always be in your DMs. Go sell the shit out of them after the webinar, right? And so this is such a powerful strategy, not only for show rates, but just in general to get more sales, okay? And so what this looks like here is we actually set up a mini chat automation. You ever heard of mini chat? Mini chat basically is just a DM automation software here, and it looks a lot crazier than it is, but this is one that's set up right now for next week, right? So you can see February 1st, the day of the webinar, February 4th, right? And so what they'll do is they'll send the message to the Instagram, and then they automatically get like an automated message that says, you got it, click the button below to download your book, right? And so we give them the book. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to tease them. We're just, hey, here's the book. And then what we do is we have automations throughout the week going out to these people. Now, one thing to note is that you can only send people an automation if they've DM'd you 24 hours prior. If it's longer than 24 hours, these automations will not work, right? And so one of the things that you want to make sure you do is try to get responses out of these people manually, having conversations with them so that these automations can send out, right? Or you can just at least warm them up with conversation. Now, where this really helps is somebody who DMs in the last like 24 hours-ish or so, right? And so what you can do is in your follow-up sequences and your emails at the 24-hour mark, hey, if you missed this, go DM me the word blank, and that way you get as many people to DM you within that 24-hour period, and now you can send an automated message right here 30 minutes before the presentation, 20 minutes before the presentation, right? And so not only are you hitting them on email, you're hitting them on text message, and now you're hitting them in the DM. Now these are all different ways of you to get more people to show up, right? And so the way that this is built out, you basically can, I'll kind of go through this really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's a little bit confusing, but you make conditions that says if the time is after this date, then you have a smart delay, right? If the time is after this, then they go here. If the time is after this, they go here. If the time is after this, they go here. If it's after this, so forth and so forth, they go all the way down, right? But if it's not after this date, so let's say someone opts in before February 1st, they'll sit here at this delay, and then when it goes through till February 1st at 1800, then they'll get this message, and then they'll go right back through the same cycle all the way through, right? And so that will allow people to land in the right place, and then it'll allow them to get the right message at the right time. But again, remember that if somebody ends up opting in 4 days and then they don't have a conversation with you, then they're not gonna be able to get any of these messages, right? And so again, these are the most important two right here. The 24-hour, if you can get as many people crammed in at 24 hours here, then you can get this automated message out, and another way to remind them to show up to the training, right? Very, very powerful strategy. I absolutely love using this. We do this all the time, especially with clients that have setters, because even if people don't show up to the webinar, guess what? You can have conversation with them. You can sell them whatever the hell you want. They're in your DM, right? Right? So number 3 are teasers, right? And so teasers are essentially something to get people to show up. Now, I've seen people do like oh, show up to the training, you get $1,000 off, or you get $1,000, like we're giving $1,000 away to one lucky winner. Like, that's fucking stupid, right? All you're gonna get people who want to show up for the $1,000, like that doesn't actually help people like want to show up to the training. Like, they're literally just gonna, there's so many people that will just show up for the $1,000. Like, I think that's the stupidest thing you can do, and you're out $1,000. Like, no. People will show up if they want to actually learn, right? And so not only is your, pre-messages and your pre-emails have to really sell them, but you want to have a teaser that they can use on the training itself, right? Like something that like is going to relate to the training, not just I'm gonna give you a fucking $1,000 if you show up. Like, it's stupid, bro. Like, this, if you do that, don't do that, because it does not help your show rates. If anything, it gets the wrong people to the webinar that just want the $1,000, right? And then you guess what? You have to give them $1,000 while you're pitching at the same time or around the same time, and so you ruin the pitch. It's stupid, okay? And so the teasers right here, like I'm talking about. Let me see if I have a good one here. So right here, here's a good teaser. And so this was a webinar that we just did like a week ago. And so we've given them a copy of our generational wealth workbook. Now they're gonna use this workbook during the training, and that's what's important here. They're gonna use it during the training. Like, it's not just some random workbook, it literally is a workbook. And the cool thing about doing this is, if you're running ads or if you're promoting, you can use this as a teaser inside of your promotion. Like, hey, by the way, when you show up to this webinar, we're gonna give you this workbook, right? Print this thing out, even if it's a PDF, I don't care. Print the front page out, put it on something, we're gonna give you this workbook. It will entice people to show up because they get something tangible, right? Most of these webinars are always somebody just bullshitting, talking, and pitching, right? And so mix it up, change it up. Hey, you come to this webinar, we're giving you this workbook right here. Inside of this workbook is X, Y, and Z. And so that will entice people to show up, and it's gonna put a spin on the traditional webinar. And so this right here is what we call a teaser, right? And we're teasing them. When they show up, they're gonna get this item. So you can stack both of these, right? So you can stack this if you want, and this could be just like a simple guide or something like that, right? Hey, DM me for the calculator, DM me for the guide, right? And then you could also, inside of your sequencing, is say, hey, by the way, if you show up, we're also gonna give you the workbook that you can go through during the webinar. We're also gonna give you the workbook that helped our client do X, Y, and Z, right? So make something compelling that relates to the webinar, that they're not just gonna show up to the webinar just for this item. This item needs to complement it well enough that this is not the main focus, or you will screw yourself just like the stupid $1,000 giveaway, right? Don't do $1,000 giveaways. So very cool, you can do both of these stacked together. And number 4, the mecca of getting more people to show up to your webinar, the screenshot. This alone will increase 5 to 10% of your registrants showing up to your webinar. Now, this isn't something that happens it actually happens during the presentation. This can be like your Hail Mary, like if you're like, oh my God, my show rates are low, this thing can help you increase it, or it can just inject it with steroids and you can get a lot more people to show up, right? I love this. I've been using this for about the last 1.5 to 2 years, and almost every single time, like clockwork, you'll see another 5 to 10% of the people that registered show up to the webinar. And the reason this works so well is because about 15 to 20 minutes into the presentation, we will literally take a screenshot of the presentation with the client presenting and then send it out to the entire list of registrants, right? And so what they get on their end is a text with a little blurb, and they get a screenshot of what they are missing, right? This is FOMO in action, right? Like, it is so powerful. You need to make sure that you do this one. If you don't do any of the other ones, do this one, right? And so I'll show you what it kind of looks like right here. So here you can see 3,000 people at about 15 minutes, and then immediately a massive jump to 4,000, 3,000 to 4,000, 1,000 people, right? Like, boom, within what, a 5-minute period. And then obviously some of those people get messages later and they'll trickle in. Now you could see this trend was probably gonna slow down around like right here. So maybe 3,200, 3,300. We ended up with 4,300 people registered, or excuse me, showed up because of the screenshot. Amazing. Do not skip this one. I fucking love this one, right? And so I don't even like to tell people about this one, but I'm gonna tell you because you got to the end of the video, and not that many people are probably gonna watch this video. Eventually, maybe I'll do this again, but I'll show you what it kind of looks like. It's super cool. So again, what'll happen is when they come into here about 15 to 20 minutes in, and the reason this says 25 minutes is because that last text message that we said in the pre was 10 minutes, and then 25 minutes after 10 minutes is 15 minutes, right? So 15 minutes after they enter, or they start the webinar, 25 minutes after they enter this sequence, they are sent right here. And you can see right here, just says you here, right? And the reason I like this too is because it looks like your friend is like, hey man, you here? Like, what are you, outside? And so it says you here, I'm covering the truth behind biohacking, blah, blah, blah. So a little quick blurb, and then you have a screenshot. And that screenshot needs to either have a really cool picture of the presentation. Like this client, for example, doesn't use slides, but if you have a really cool teaser slide that you use at about 10 minutes or so, put that in there, screenshot it, make sure you have all of the comments and everything on the side, and then add that to the text, right? What we also do is we also add that here to the email. So the same exact thing, you can see the screenshot right here. So all of the comments and everything are on the side, and you can see him, right? Usually, like I said, when we have clients that have presentations, we'll have like a really cool slide right here when he's presenting. This client doesn't do presentations, he crushes it, doesn't really matter. But I don't recommend not doing presentations, but this client just kills it without him, so we let him do it. But this is the absolute mecca, dude. Like, this will inject your webinar with at least another like 5%, maybe 10%, right? So highly recommend doing this. It is a really, really good strategy. And if you can basically couple all 4 of these things, like stack all 4 of these things, I almost guarantee you're gonna get 30% plus. You may get 25% plus, but 25% is better than your measly 10% that you may be dealing with right now. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to hear below, comment below, like, subscribe, and reach out to me. If you have any more questions about this kind of stuff, I'm totally cool to answer questions. We work with a lot of clients in a lot of different industries. We run, again, 200 to 300 webinars per year. And so we've got a lot of knowledge, and a lot of these things are just like, hey, here you go. Here's some little information if you need it. There also will be a couple links below for you to get like a full detailed breakdown of how you actually set up our webinars, or you can reach out to us. We're happy to help you set up your webinar for you without you having to lift a finger. So if you enjoyed this video, would love to hear from you. Until next time, let's hope you make more money with these videos, and we'll chat soon. All right, see ya.